Well, first off, welcome to LinuxFest Northwest. Round of applause for LinuxFest. Hell yeah. All right, so let's start this off by not talking about Linux really at all. This is hey, helper man, no talking. This isn't a chatty time. All right. Full disclosure here. I am. Hey, slides. How are we going? Resume. Go. How do you?
Slides?
Yeah. I have slides. How do I go to the next slide? That'll work. All right. I have a slide. That's pretty big for me. All right. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian Lunduk. I am paranoid. I am worried about everything. I currently have a cell phone. This is the first cell phone I've had in about 5 years or so. In fact, I made a very big point about how I wouldn't have a cell phone because they're watching you with the cell phones and they're tracking you with the cell phones. And I made fun of all my friends for having cell phones, so I bought a cell phone. There's that. When we leave today, my hope is that all of you are as freaked out constantly about all of this as I am every second of every day, and when you wake up in the morning, your bed is just drenched in sweat. That is the hope. So this is really all about improving our life experiences here. This is what telephones were like a long, long time ago. This is what the switchboards were like. Were any of you alive back when telephones were like this? Probably not a whole lot of us. This was kind of cool. It was really simple. You know, it wasn't digital. It wasn't automatically routed. It was all very simple. These wonderful ladies sat there, and when they wanted to connect a line from Cleveland to Detroit, they had to manually jack you in using big quarter-inch audio cables to jack one line to another and slowly route you there. Back in these days, people were concerned about being watched. They were concerned that the government might be tapping their phone lines or that, like, Hoffa might be tapping their phone lines for something. People were worried about that. It was a legitimate concern. Back then, newspapers ran articles about, the possible intrusion of privacy. If you've got a telephone in your house, people might be listening to you. People were concerned about that. Nowadays, we don't give a crap. How many people right now have their telephone on them? All of you, right? Right? Okay. So I have this on me right now. Now, we know that this device can, at all times, listen to this. We all are aware of this. Anyone who isn't aware of this hasn't turned on the television or the internet in like 3 or 4 years, right? You know this for a fact. You know that your microphone in your phone can be activated at any time without your knowledge. That is a fact. There's pretty much nothing you can do about that. Does anyone have a phone that they are confident cannot have the microphone activated right now?
Burner phone.
A burner phone? It still can be activated. It's just not traced to you. If you pay for a couple of dollars for your phone from Walmart, they can still be activated. They just don't necessarily know it's you. But how many people are concerned about that? How many people, keep your hands up, how many people are concerned about that enough to get rid of their phone? Oh, the hands go down slowly. A couple of you keep your hands up. See, I'm concerned about that all the time. I've had this phone for about 2 months now, and it's nice. It's nice to have a phone, right? It's so convenient that I'm willing to give up every last trace of my personal privacy for convenience, which means I'm an asshole. What we're about to do is a very meandering stroll through this. There is somewhat of an order here, but this is not categorized into nice little discrete sections. So you're just going to have to bear with me as we go. Quotes. Hey, it actually fit on the projector. Nice. All right. The old saying, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, right? Someone who would say that you can be watched by a government agency, or how many spy agencies do we have? Is it 16 or 17 now? I think it's 6. I think it is actually 17 now. All can get access to your phone, etc., at any time. And the argument for that is, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, Why should you be worried about it, right? Right? One of my favorite quotes is the Snowden quote, arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. And that really is very, very true, especially when you add in this quote, which is attributed to Cardinal Richelieu, but he never actually said it, near as I can tell. If one would give me 6 lines written by the hand of the most honest man, I would find something in them to have him hanged. And that really is true. If you go through your email, this guy right here, you right there, if you have your whole email archive distributed to all these people, even if you've never committed a crime in your life, we absolutely could manage to get you the death penalty. There's no doubt about it. There's some way to find some words in your email to be misconstrued in some way and tied together, and all of a sudden, you probably work for Russia. I mean, realistically, that is true. It is so easy to connect the dots. How many people read, like, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency by Douglas Adams? Yeah. All right, great book, right? The interconnectedness of all things. If a butterfly flaps his wings over here, there's an earthquake in New York, right? Everything is interconnected. When you have a huge amount of data, an absolutely obscene amount of data, how many emails are in your inbox? Not unread, just total. Any idea? 100? I called on the wrong guy. Like 40,000 at least, right? It's insane. If you go through 40,000 some odd emails from any one person, not even worrying about the fact that you now know a lot of information about everyone that person's communicated with, you can probably cherry pick information to make that person look awful. And then you leak it publicly and it's just fantastic. So when we've got data, and when I talk about, these are the 3 truths of stolen data as I see them, of stored data, security can and will be breached. And we'll go over some of those examples shortly. But there is absolutely no place on earth that you can store your data that is secure. It does not exist. Period. End of story. There has never been a secure way to store data. There never will be, as far as we can tell, a secure way to store data. That's just all there is to it. That data that you have, if someone has access to it, they will use it for financial gain. Does anyone here use Google services? Google sells your data regularly, both to themselves and to other corporations and individuals, all the time. That is, in fact, their job. Google is a marketing company, and you give them data, therefore they profit from it. That's not to say that that's bad or evil, but it is. Data will always be used to gain more data. If someone, and this is not, I don't want to get too terribly political. I don't want to trash on Republicans or Democrats or anything like that. Let's just use an example here. Does everyone remember the John Podesta email hacks that happened? Okay. John Podesta, a member of the Democratic Party, got his email hacked. Not all of his email, some of it. Many people all around the world then used that information to gain access to multiple other email accounts and online accounts that he had, because they now had the ability to get some information from some of his emails. It then exploded, and he basically had, at that point, no personal privacy whatsoever. 4chan and everyone else had everything on him. They had access to his Outlook.com account, which was just a mistake to have that in the first place. His Gmail account, I don't think he had a Hotmail account, but he had a ton of different accounts, and everyone just had them now, because almost everything is tied to your email. How many people here do online banking? Is there an email address associated with that account? Yes. Yes, there is. If you want to reset your password, what happens? Does it send you something to your email address? Perhaps a link that you click on to reset your password? If someone gains access to your email account, they now have access to your bank account within seconds. That's just how it works. And I'm not just talking about a hacker, a fat guy in a bed in a basement or whatever. I'm literally talking about anyone, government agencies, corporations, anyone who wants access to it has it. So, here we go. This is where it starts to get fun for me. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, signed into law in 1978 by President Jimmy Carter. Does anyone know what this is? This is talked about as the FISA stuff, right? This is what basically consolidates together the ability of the United States government and multiple agencies to not just wiretap, but to collect digital surveillance on all of us. Now, originally when it was signed in 1978, there was supposed to be warrants that happened for it. In order to do those warrants, we had to use a secretive court. Because clearly, if you're trying to surveil someone, you don't want them to know they're being surveilled, right? That was the logic behind this. So this is the FISA court, or the FISC court. It was created, and it was done so that no one would have access to what happens there. It's a very, very simple concept. So a law enforcement agency goes to the FISA court and says, I want access to this guy's everything. And if they can convince the judge of that, a singular judge at the FISA court, then they can get access to all of that. Now, because these sorts of things scare the crap out of me, I like to visualize what they are. This is the FISA court in the E. Barrett Prettyman building, which is a really great name. This is literally the court. This is what it looks like. This is the statue out front. That is a statue of a general during the Battle of Gettysburg, I believe. But this is where that is held. So when you think of people spying on you and getting a warrant through the FISA court, that's where they go. That's literally where they go. So where is that exactly? Well, specifically, right there. That is the E. Barrett Prettyman building. Look around at what's nearby to this, just to give you an idea of how closely intertwined this is with our entire federal government. It is literally a 4-minute walk from the United States Capitol, and it is down the street from the White House. And it's really close to the Smithsonian, so maybe they have something to do with it too. But no, it's all really, really close together. I mean, this is an integral part of our government apparatus at this point. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it simply is. Which means at this point, anyone, any member of the United States Congress can go to the E. Barrett Prettyman building and, depending on the security clearance, can go to the FISA court and get balls rolling. Now, something happened back about 17-ish years ago with warrantless domestic wiretapping. And everyone kind of generally knows what this is, right? This is taking the stuff we just talked about and making it so you don't need that warrant anymore. You don't have to go to the Prettyman building. You can literally simply fast-track it and get the authorization to warrantly tap everybody. And that's not just your phones. That's email accounts, everything else. Now, there's some debate as to when this program began. It is an official program. In fact, it looks like there's actually 2 or 3 official programs. According to Bloomberg, it began under the Clinton administration, at the very end of the Clinton administration in 2000. According to the New York Times, it began in 2002 under the Bush administration. Either way, wiretapping you is happening. So, whoever did it, it's not really a political thing like a party fight. It's more just this sucks that this is happening. So right around that time, the government now has the ability to collect data on all of you. And we all know that that's happening in bulk. So at least up until very recently, and likely still occurring, every call you make, every text you send is in some way being recorded. In some cases, just metadata on it, like who you're calling and when. In other cases, all of the data, which gets a little complicated. How many people here currently use Yahoo Mail? Do you really still use Yahoo Mail? What is wrong with you, dude? Wait, hold on. Before you answer why you make terrible life decisions. Does anyone not know why you should not use Yahoo Mail ever? Okay, you're wondering why. So to make it very, very clear, yeah, all of your email for years and years and years is being given direct access to multiple agencies of the United States government, not to mention all of the countless companies that Yahoo is selling your data to.
So go ahead. Why are you using Yahoo Mail? Because it's delightful.
It's an account I've had for a long time, and I still use it to sign up for random websites that aren't web sensitive, like Strava.
So you use it for stuff that you don't care. It's your spam catcher account. Yeah. You know what? That's actually a pretty good use of it.
Is Gmail really any better?
We'll get to Google in a second. There's no spoilers on this one. So this is terrifying, right? But why, again, would Yahoo be the only one doing this? So we know that Yahoo did this, right? We know this for a fact. Everyone came clean on it, right? Why on God's green earth would the U.S. government care about Yahoo but not Gmail? That doesn't make any sense, right? There are over 1 billion Gmail accounts. Over 1 billion. That's a lot of people. Let's do some math real quick, and I'm going somewhere with this. Roughly a quarter of all Americans, when they're at work, use Gmail. A quarter. How many people do you interact with via your email accounts? More than one or two, probably? Possibly hundreds or thousands of people that you interact with over the course of a given month or year with your Gmail accounts, even if you're not that chatty. Family members, coworkers. Do you ever send information that's sensitive via Gmail? 1/4 of all of America. And this is just America. This doesn't include Canada and every other country on the planet that you can use Gmail from, which is pretty much everything but China. That's an awful lot of the populace. That means that the information of essentially everybody is right here. There is an estimate that it is roughly 15 exabytes of data, which is 15 million terabytes, right? That's a current estimate. Here's the thing. I think that estimate is incredibly small, and we'll get into that in a moment. That estimate, I think, is very, very small. But that in of itself is insanity. Think about it in terms of this. Don't think about this as this is a huge number of MP3s. Think about this in terms of your tax records, your pictures of you and your wife doing sensitive things, your email correspondence with your lawyers, etc. All of this stuff is all stored and indexed continually and made available for searching and marketing to you and other things by Google at all times. I'm going to read this quote because it's the most assholey quote I think I've ever heard. If you have something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. But if you really need that kind of privacy, the reality is that search engines, including Google, do retain this information for some time, and it's important. For example, that we are all subject in the United States to the Patriot Act. It is possible that that information could be made available to the authorities. Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google. That's Eric Schmidt. He just said that to you. In my first round of the slides, I'm like, oh, so all information is fine. It's fair game, right? So I hopped onto Google and started Googling things like Eric Schmidt's house and started posting slides of this is where Eric Schmidt lives. This is what the front of his house looks like. This is the directions where you'd get to it if you're leaving LinuxFest Northwest today and how long it would take. I started realizing that that is a real jerk thing of me to do. However, he did make it clear that it's totally fine for you to look that information up, do whatever you want with it, post it online. It's totally fine. You can post information about the divorce he had with his wife. You can post information about whatever personal privacy information you want, because if it was bad, he wouldn't have done it in the first place, right, guys? Asshole. This is the closest Google data center to us. This is in the Dalles, Oregon. It's actually not too far from where I live. It's huge. This is a huge complex. If you look down here, there are multiple 4-story tall water towers used for cooling. This is gigantic. To give you an idea of scale, these are cars. This is a data center. This is a support complex plus supplementary data center. Now, I started doing some math on this, trying to figure out what you could store here. recognizing, again, 4-story tall water towers just for cooling the data center. So it's getting very hot in there. So I looked online. I went to pogolinux.com, and they have a storage service, right? And I'm like, what are the most expensive storage servers they have? And you can get storage servers that cost just an arm and a leg if you really want to have like almost a petabyte of storage, right? But it is possible to get like a 6U rack that can store 0.7, 0.8 of a petabyte. Totally doable. Which means you could put, even with extensive cooling, let's say 2 of those per rack, plus like cool slide-out trays and pop-up screens and stuff, right? So let's say 2 of those per rack. How many goddamn racks do you think fit in there? That means each rack, minimum, could store a full petabyte. If you have, how big are racks, right? So let's say yay wide, roughly, about yay tallish, a little taller than me sometimes. So if you line them up end to end, just the length of a car, you're really talking about being able to store, say, 10 petabytes for a Honda Civic. Let's assume that little thing right there is a Honda Civic, and that's 10 petabytes. This is multiple stories tall, again, with 4-story water towers. How much data is in there? That estimate of 15 exabytes is low. That number gets huge in a hurry, and that is one data center. There are many of these, and some of them are much, much bigger. They chose this particular spot. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it is right next to the Columbia River there. They chose it because that way they could pump in river water like nobody's business to shove into those water towers and keep those petabytes and petabytes from overheating. That's all data on you. That's not anything else. That's data on me, that's data on that guy, that's data on him. You. It's there. Now, Google makes money off of this, right? They have literally no reason whatsoever to delete that data. There's no value in them deleting it. There's only value in them retaining it forever. If I was the Google CFO, I would advise the CEO to never delete anything. Keep it searchable and let me do more with it, right? It's a business, and they're clearly doing okay at this business. It's just good to visualize this stuff. All right, let's transition back over to data storage for the government. Does anyone know what the Utah Data Center project is? All right, this is a treat. All right, it was built for an estimated $1.5 billion outside of Lehi, Utah. The operations are led by someone from the NSA. Who that person is secret. The mission is secret, and the total amount of data storage is secret. However, since we know that the NSA has multiple programs in place to collect, store, and search in real time data from all of us, just like what Google has, we know that that's part of what this mission in data storage is. Now let's take a look at the Utah Data Center. This is what it looks like from the front. It looks rocky and dry because it's Utah. But this literally is the front office of the Utah Data Center. To give you a better idea of this, though, here's a sky shot. So, quick virtual visual tour here. These 2 large buildings you see down there in front, those are the data storage complexes. These are not 1-story high ramblers, friends. These are many, many, many stories high. This little tiny thin building that runs between them is the administrative offices for the Utah Data Center. That is the administrative offices. That's where the programmers and the secretaries and the network topologists and whatnot work. The data is all stored here. Cooling towers off to the sides. These over here, those are power generator buildings. Huge, huge power generator buildings. In case all of the power for the state of Utah goes out, the NSA and multiple other agencies want to be able to retain access and usage of all the data that's stored in these big, gigantic, mammoth buildings that make that little teeny Google one look just adorable. Huge. Now, Google stores all of the emails, essentially, for a quarter of America, as we have already seen. What in the hell is being stored in there? I don't mean to sound alarmist, but that's a lot of goddamn data. That's not a website. This is not a database. This is not the amount of data you put into a simple search engine. What we're talking about here is not, this is all of the videos on YouTube. In fact, pretty much the entire internet just shoved into a couple of buildings in Utah. And searchable and unencrypted. And also here are multiple Cray supercomputers with the express purpose of decrypting multiple encryption protocols, which is startling all by itself. Here's a little better shot of it overhead here. There's that administrative building. It looks like a giant banana or something else. Big data centers there. Again, power buildings over here and over here. Lots of water cooling off to the side. Interestingly, if you go look at exactly where this is, what you're really looking at is a place that is about a mile from a shopping complex and movie theater outside of Lehi, Utah. So you can go here and visit this. You can actually drive right up next to it if you wanted to. It's available on Google Maps, and as Eric Schmidt pointed out, if they didn't want you going there, they wouldn't have done it in the first place. So... So, how many of you guys have OK Google turned on your phone? Really? Okay, some of you aren't raising your hand that clearly do. So I'm going to go like this here. Let's see here. Where am I right now?
Here's a map of 3000 Lindbergh Avenue, Bellingham, Washington, 98225.
So I just asked my phone where I was. It told me where I was, gave me a map to where I am, told me my exact address, and then spoke it out loud to me, which is creepy as shit. At all times, your personal devices know exactly where you are. That is a crazy amount of data. They know what's happening around you. They can hear what's happening around you. I'm going to take a slight tangent for a moment. Any of you play Pokemon Go? Any of you play... Put your hand down, man. Any of you play any other augmented reality game where you walk around with your phone out? Okay, not too many of you, but a couple, right? Thought experiment. Why would it be a bad idea to take the world's perfect surveillance device with a camera on the front and on the back and walk around like this everywhere? Just hypothetically speaking, if you were the NSA and you thought, hot diggity, we are entering the golden age of surveillance. These are in people's purses and pockets. But you know, those microphones don't work very well when it's all muffled and I'm hearing the jeans rubbing around on the microphone. If only people would take it out and hold it a few feet from their face so that we could hear them, and see what they're looking at all times. Wouldn't that be convenient? I'm not suggesting that games along these lines are spying on you. But one thing that might be important to remember is the company that makes Pokemon Go actually received funding by the NSA to build their stuff. That's worth checking out. There is a gentleman that's currently on the board of Niantic that has repeatedly received, Niantic is the company behind Pokemon Go, that has repeatedly received multiple CIA director awards for his work on things like Pokemon Go. The CIA has, this is not a joke, a venture capital firm. It's called InQtel. If you don't, it's the word Intel with the letter Q in the middle. From, Q from James Bond, that's why they named it that. Their job is to go around investing into things that would help the intelligence community, right? Fair. If you have a surveillance apparatus, you want to invest in the best, right? Well, it just so happens that the man that was in charge of that invested in what later became the company that developed Google Maps and then got spun into Niantic and created Pokemon Go. And the CIA was so delighted with how that turned out, they gave the man the CIA's Director Gold Medallion Award, or whatever it's called, twice. for a video game. Why would the CIA give a crap about a video game? Again, not saying there's a link there. Just feel like it's good information to throw out there. So we're talking about information collection, information gathering. What better way to gather information than if we have microphones and different sensors all over someone's home? So the IHS forecast for Internet of Things devices is that by the year 2025, we'll be at 75.4 billion Internet of Things devices worldwide. That's the current forecast. The growth rate is roughly mirroring that from about a year ago. It looks like that's about on track at this point. It might be a little shy of that, might be a little over, but a lot, more than a couple, right? So what is the sort of data that might be collected on you from such devices? Just valid things, right? Let's walk through this a minute so that when we look at a chart in a moment, it kind of all clicks. This is all data that is valid to be collected on you from your phone or from a variety of touch tablets or Internet of Things devices. You want to know what the weather is. I want to know what the weather is in Bellingham, right? How is that bad that someone knows that I was curious if it's going to be sunny today? If it's going to rain or not? That's not bad, right? Go to weather.com, no big deal. Your synced files will clearly, if you're syncing files, whatever service you use, they know you synced some files, right? It's not so bad. It's a lot of things. Let's narrow this down a little bit. Let's talk just about weather and time. So you know what time it is, where you're at, and you're looking for various pieces of weather. At that point, anyone who has access to that data can know what location you're checking weather for at any time. So, hypothetical. You've been checking the weather in Bellingham, Washington for the last 5 days. Now, all of a sudden, you check the weather in Vancouver, British Columbia. A hypothesis can be made there that you are either about to take a trip to Vancouver, or you just did, or you're in Vancouver. Something's happening where you're going from here to Vancouver. Let's say you do it in LAX, and all of a sudden you search for the weather in, let's say Guatemala or Moscow. So it looks like you cared about what it was like in LAX this morning, but all of a sudden you want to go to Moscow? And that's just from the weather, and they happen to know what time you checked the weather. That's a lot of data can be gleaned from a very small amount of data, and they know a lot more than just what weather you're caring about. Pardon for the light change. This is that Internet of Things device what I was talking about, that 75 billion. Then this is that compared to the number of computers that exist in the entire world and smartphones in the entire world. There's more IoT devices, clearly, going to be out there than computers or smartphones. That's scary. That's scary all by itself. But how does that compare to a far more interesting demographic? Here it is compared to the population of the world. That means that for every man, woman, and child, not just every household, but every individual on the planet, there will be a number of IoT devices on them at all times. And most of those devices will not be going to most of the population. The reality is they're going to be condensed. North America, Western Europe, areas of South America, areas of Japan and certain parts of Asia will get more of these IoT devices than, say, Central Africa, right? I mean, it's just going to happen. Places where we have good internet and power access are going to get a lot more of them. So here's the population of the United States of America. It's roughly 1 pixel on this chart. In fact, I did the math, and it shouldn't really even equate to 1 pixel, but that's the best LibreOffice could do. So it actually makes it look better than it is, which means that your houses are going to be filled statistically with things gathering data points on you. Now, those data points, some of them are going to be innocuous seeming, right? Let's say you have an internet-enabled crock pot. This is my favorite example in the world. All they can really gather with you on that is it plugged in? Did you touch it? Did you set some cook times, right? That's all they know. But from that little bit of information, they know, maybe you're not home right then. Or you definitely are home right then. They then can track part of your whereabouts from your crock pot. That's one of those devices. Your house is filled with them. How many people have IoT devices in their house right now? Okay, those of you not raising your hands, are the only devices connected to the internet in your home your laptops and desktop computers? Yeah? Yeah? Because if you answered no to both of those, you're very much wrong. There are internet-connected devices in your home. Do you have a set-top box from Comcast, Fios, Xfinity, anything like that? You have an IoT device. Often, those remote controls even have microphones in them. Just saying, those are connected as well. There are more devices connected capturing data on you than you probably realize. If you go home and start walking around and think about what uses electricity in your house, and then look at it and think about, if cable and internet service went out, would this be affected in any way? If the answer is yes, it's collecting data on you. Your Xbox, your consoles, your set-top boxes are probably the most common ones for most people. But there's a lot of them. Smart appliances are crazy. Do not buy a smart oven. That shit will kill you.
LED light bulb.
Who knows what this is? That is a canary. We're going to call this canary the warrant canary. How many people know what a warrant canary is? All right, quick description. The idea of a warrant canary is simple. If you get a national security letter, a request for giving data over to a national security agency and you're a company or an individual, that request is often accompanied by a gag order saying that you can't tell anyone that the government or agencies requested that information of you. So many computer companies, especially because they're sensitive to the fact that people like us get uppity about this, they do what they call a warrant canary. So they do yearly or quarterly, if they're nice, security reports where they say, you know what, in 2014, we received no letters from the NSA requesting data. But then in 2015, if that line goes away, the canary is dead. They didn't tell you that they received an NSA letter, but they didn't tell you they didn't anymore. It's their way of getting around that. So I want to take a look. For those of you who haven't paid attention to warrant canaries, it's important to do. We know that, how many people use Reddit, for example? I use Reddit. Reddit's received letters. Their warrant canary went away over a year ago. So here's a couple of examples here. Here's archive.org. Archive.org. So national security requests from or FISA orders received, 0. This is for 2015. I haven't seen the data for 2016 yet. I don't know that they've released it, which makes me nervous. So I kind of went through and looked at a few of them. And here's some of my favorites. Here's Adobe. Court orders, 0. National security requests, 0. Apparently, the NSA does not care who has the Creative Suite or not. All right, fair enough. So Reddit, as of January 25th, 2015, Reddit has never received a national security letter. If we ever receive such a request, we would seek to let the public know it existed. They have not let us know it existed, but they have deleted the warrant canary, which essentially lets us know it exists. So sometime after January 29th, 2015, it appears that Reddit received a national security letter, the contents of which we have no way of knowing at this point. This one is my favorite. Pinterest. How many people use Pinterest? Some of you do. All right. As of 2015, they stated that the number of requests they received was 0. As of 2016, it is between 0 and 249. That is just such a specific number. I don't know. We may have received 0. We may have received 249 of them. It's somewhere in there. Like, seriously? And they broke it down into 6-month increments. Like, yeah, could be some here, could be some there. Who knows, right? It's crazy. I recommend taking a look at this. There are websites. I believe the EFF had a website up called Canary Watch or Warrant Watch, something along those lines. They stopped maintaining that after a while, but that tracked all the various warrant canaries out there. It's still a good place to go to see where some of these companies present that information, but you'll kind of need to track it on your own now or dive into the darker parts of Reddit for people yelling about it. But it's something to bear in mind at all times, to know when these sorts of things are happening. This is simply a fact. Google and the NSA, not saying evil, but the reality is because of what they do, they know more about you, and definitely more about the guy that uses Yahoo, than you probably know about yourself. And that's really, really true. For example, if you had your phone on you and GPS was enabled and you were moving between cell towers, they know the route you took to get here today. They know the route you took 6 months ago to walk to the grocery store. They know that. That is a searchable thing. They can compare that to patterns over time. I don't know the last time I went to the grocery store. I know I did it this week. I can't remember the day. They know that for a fact. They know the exact time I was there. They know the route I took wandering around my grocery store and how much time I spent in the bakery aisle. They know this. I don't know this. This may not be bad data. This may not be data we're really that concerned about. But when you add it all up, they literally know more about each and every one of us than we know about ourselves. They have access to all of your email. End of story. Unless you're storing your email in a very, very intelligent way and it's stored in a bunker in the mountains of Switzerland, they have access to it. And even then, they probably still can get access to it somehow because email's just not that secure. Even if you're, encrypting everything, email's just not that secure. We just need to cope with that. That's just the reality of it. More data than you know about you. Now think about that for a minute. Think about everything that you do in the shadows. When you're home alone, what are you doing? When you go out by yourself and, you just feel like blowing off some steam and you want to go to a bar or hit the movie theater or something and maybe your friends don't know. Maybe you were playing hooky from school or from work and you don't want your boss knowing. Think about all the things you don't necessarily want people to know that are pretty innocuous. You're not breaking laws, but you don't necessarily want people knowing about it. It's known. It's known, it's searchable, and it's recorded. It just is. And we've consented to that. And we still carry phones. I still have this on me. Because I'm stupid. Because I'm a really stupid person. And I just can't imagine going back to a way. How many people were kids in the 1980s or earlier? Right? This wasn't the problem back then. I would leave my house, and my mom didn't even have a clue where I was. The government didn't know where I was. My teachers didn't know where I was. I didn't know where I was sometimes. And did I die? No, I was fine. But the reality is, I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to not having a camera or phone with me at all times. That's terrifying. I can't imagine that. How many people here would freak the hell out if they had to put their phone away and not use it for a month? And not hop online for a month, and not use their cable box, their video game consoles that are connected online, anything. Literally, the only thing you can do is watch VHS tapes and play your Nintendo Entertainment System so you can play Donkey Kong for the next month. Would you freak out? It might be kind of a nice vacation for a few days. But for a month? Horrifying. Horrifying. It is absolutely horrifying. Tinfoil hats are funny, but they are kind of based on science, in a way. What is a tinfoil hat, if not a slightly ineffective Faraday cage? This is a Faraday cage. In fact, here, can I play this? Yes, we can. This is me from a previous LinuxFest Northwest, a couple of years back. This is a giant man-killing, literally, this killed a guy, Tesla coil. This is me inside of a strange Faraday cage. That is Schoen from the EFF and another buddy of mine in there. We went inside of it because we wanted to do something stupid. I am inside a giant tinfoil hat right now, right? I'm sitting there, and this is a Tesla coil that literally killed a guy in the Cirque du Soleil, which is why a museum just down the street from here got it. And here's what's about to happen. What happens when that thing gets fired off at me? Come on, fire it off. Boom! Right in my face. Look at that. I'm touching it. I'm sticking my hands up against that metal. I'm saying, yeah, I am literally millimeters away from sudden death to the face inside of a Faraday cage. The tinfoil hat basically operates on the same idea. Same same basic theory, right? It's tinfoil, right? Now, it's a little less effective because it doesn't completely encapsulate you. Clearly, if you just have a hat on, there's other paths for that electromagnetic signal to go, right? So you're still going to die. I would not put on a tinfoil hat and stand in front of that Tesla coil. However, they have done experiments. If you take basically a sensor that senses that sort of electromagnetic radiation, and you put that sensor inside of a tinfoil hat, it's reduced. Not significantly, a very small amount. In fact, I think it's less than 10% overall, but it is reduced. It is reduced. With that in mind, we're going to build tinfoil hats today. Go ahead and pass these around. Send those on back. Now, to make tinfoil hats is a very simple process. We'll start these back here. Just passing them, keep them rolling. Rip it off. Rip off as much as you need. I bought a ridiculous amount of tinfoil. Yep, at least a good yard, because remember, you want to wrap that around your skull. So let's get some ideas going here. This is the movie Sign, starring Mel Gibson. This is one of my favorite tinfoil hat designs. You wrap it around the head, and you create a nice little pointy thing on top. It's very simple to make. There's also a couple of other designs you can go with here. I personally like the chef hat. I work at a burger joint sort of thing going on. That's a nice way to go. I highly recommend that route. Or the classic Weird Al captain's hat. Not bad, go with a little Admiralty hat. Now, technically, this will protect you from some things. That is not actually a joke. I mean, it is. It's a joke. But the reality is this will protect you from something. So let's bring that back up here for a second. Yes, please. Pass and build these. This is the most important thing you will do today. Absolutely the most important thing. So, when I came up with this idea, the thought never crossed my mind, I'm going to give tin foil to a couple hundred people, and it's not going to make noise. I don't necessarily think these things through. But so here's the takeaway from all this. As you are building tinfoil hats, literally people are turning down a tinfoil hat? You're crazy. If you would like to make more tinfoil hats throughout the conference, we will have tinfoil available at the OpenSUSE booth. Oh, my friends. Can I ask you a question? No. Thanks. Does any of this scare you more now than it did before? No? Yes? No? Were you already totally freaked out? Yes? Most of you? How many people here still truly don't care? That's nice. You got a little, yeah. Solid. That needs to go on the tweeters. I think we should be. I think we should be terrified. And here's the horrible truth about all this. No amount of encryption, no amount of being selective about the services you use will protect you from any of the data invasion that is occurring. It will not. Like we talked about earlier, there is no system on Earth that has always been secure. It has never existed. Even if you take your data and bury it underneath a mountain, I eventually will get a shovel big enough, and I will get your data. There is no way to do it. We can make it less convenient for people by not using a cell phone and holding it in front of us while we walk around all the time. That would be a nice first step. But realistically, there's nothing you can do. So, when you go off today and you think about what did I learn from this presentation, it's that you're screwed. End of story. And unless we let off a gigantic EMP in the upper atmosphere, there is nothing that we can do to protect ourselves. Except wear a lot of tinfoil hats. That's really all we've got. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the conference. And please wear tinfoil hats wherever you go. I just feel like that should be the look of this conference.